Hello, it's Miss Heather, piano and voice teacher at Conservatory of the Ozarks, working on my study guide video about issues in Christian music. So, how is the term multicultural at times misunderstood when planning worship? The term multicultural worship means different things to different people. Culture is the language, customs, institutions, artifacts, etc. that make up the social environment. In other words, my culture has certain customs engraved in it. Like family Christmas traditions, that is part of my particular culture. Culture is not to be confused with ethnicity. Ethnicity is a different thing. Multi-ethnic is not a term used in most congregations, that many times when people say multicultural, they actually mean multi-ethnic. When people talk about cultural specific worship, they usually mean ethnic specific worship. Our country is more of a mosaic, where people keep their individual cultures, than a melting pot where many cultures meld into one great American culture. This factor will force me to consider the style and language or languages used in the worship service for my congregation. I have to ask myself if the style and language used in the service provide a comfortable framework for worship. Another pitfall to avoid is thinking that a culture can be manipulated. Each culture has its own subset of ideas and beliefs that cannot really be manipulated. As a worship leader, I must reach the congregation in vernacular. Luther understood this to mean communicating to individuals within their cultural context. According to Karen Ward, what should be the primary reason for including cultural, ethnic, or racial idioms in music? The primary reason for including songs in the service should be, does it service the gospel? Is it for the sake of the gospel? I must ask myself honestly if I am adding the song to the service only to serve variety, cultural pride, or tokenism. For example, adding one spiritual to keep him happy when my church's demographic is becoming more diverse. I must carefully determine the impetus in my song selections. Perceived boredom is not the criteria for changing a church service. I must honestly ask myself, if the song does not fit the gospel, am I willing to include it? Am I willing to sublimate my feelings knowing that it serves the gospel? Even if I don't like a certain song, will I include it if it really fits? It is a difficult question to consider. It's hard. I don't want to base the decision on my own preference or taste. I have to look beyond my own personal taste. I must ask myself why I am inserting a hymn of a certain ethnic origin into a service. The inclusion of multicultural elements in a Christian worship service can help share the gospel to people in a congregation by using their own cultural idioms. Serious pastoral discernment should take place when selecting multicultural or multi-ethnic elements of worship. I have to ask myself if I should include different cultural hymns for the sake of variety or because they are uplifting. I have to determine if I should include multicultural songs into a homogeneous single culture congregation. Will it foster a sense of connection with worldwide believers? If the demographic of my neighborhood changes, I have to consider if we are going to change our style of worship to accommodate the changing surroundings, or embrace who we are and hope the new members of the congregation will adjust to our ways of doing things. According to Mark Bangert, what is the problem of including one African American song in the service of a congregation that is in a changing neighborhood? Adding an African American song to the service may be a difficult change for the regular church members, but it still may not meet the expectation of the worship leaders in their attempt to create a more accessible worship service for an increasingly diverse neighborhood. Not all African Americans identify with the same genre. This half-hearted effort at a multicultural worship service may be an example of misguided tokenism, prejudice, or a display of a lack of understanding of cultural complexity. According to T. David Gordon in his book, Why Johnny Can't Sing Hymns, what is the acid test of a text to be sung in worship? The acid test for hymns is, could the text survive apart from the music? Can the text stand alone as a spoken prose? If the tune were lost, would the text survive? Or does the text need the tune in order to survive? And that's it for now.